Again, I'm John Tynum. I'm Watershed Protection Manager for Central Arkansas Water. And Central Arkansas Water, we serve about 400,000 people across the whole Central Arkansas region with clean, safe, affordable drinking water. And our goal as part of our utility's mission, as well as our watershed protection program, is to ensure that we continue to provide that high quality, safe, clean drinking water. You know, as was mentioned, the pipeline, the Pegasus Pipeline, it does run through the drinking water supply area, the watershed that feeds Lake Maumelle, which is one of our primary drinking water supplies. A lot of this is information that I'm sure you guys know from having dealt with this pipeline over the last 60 days and before, but just for review's sake, the pipeline is about 850 miles. It was constructed back in the 40s, and it has a variety of wall thicknesses, but it is a welded steel pipe. It runs under fairly high pressure, 700 to 800 psi. In comparison, our water pipes run at about 100 to 120 psi. It was partially relocated in the 50s when we built the lake, so that the pipe itself would not run under the lake. So it just runs along the north side and then again upstream. In 2006, the pipeline, they made some modifications to the pipeline, pumping capacity, pressures, direction of flow, product. There were a wide number of changes that occurred in 2006, and now the line runs to the south. They can move up to 4 million gallons a day, and it carries that Alaska heavy crude that was shown earlier. This is really kind of the key image to this whole presentation. You can see the lake itself. It's about 8,000, 9,000 acres. Again, we get about 2/3 of our water supply on a daily basis from Lake Maumelle. And this red line that you can see running from northeast to southwest, that's the Pegasus Pipeline. There are 13.5 miles. It does cross the river that feeds the lake. It crosses that in 3 different locations. There are only 2 valves on that pipeline in the watershed. One is a manually operated valve, so you actually have to have an individual go out and turn that valve in order to shut up the pipeline down to the watershed. The other is a check valve, which is basically it lets oil go one way, and then if there were a rupture and things started flowing backwards, it would automatically close. So that's something that's more in the automated, just the one direction process. This is probably review for a bunch of you guys that, and I apologize for all the text, but basically this is just summarizing that PHMSA division of the Department of Transportation oversees pipeline regulation, and that they issued that corrective action order that sets out a number of things Exxon has to do before they can start operating that pipeline again. The latest information that we've heard is that we're probably weeks away still from figuring out the results of the testing, and then probably even weeks, if not months, from figuring out what the timeline for restarting that pipeline.
Never.
I hope it never.
Never. Dig it up and get it out of here.
So CAW, we've done a number of risk mitigation activities. One of the things that we've been saying is with that pipeline in the watershed, as long as it's there, we're always going to be managing some element of risk. We can add additional valves, they could replace the whole thing in the watershed, but there's always going to be risk. And the only way to completely eliminate the risk of that pipeline from the drinking water supply for almost 500,000 people is to remove it from the watershed. But nevertheless, over the last few years, we've been working both with local emergency responders as well as Exxon to address a number of risk-related issues. We created a risk mitigation plan partnering with local and other agencies, focused on the pipeline and the lake itself. We've done a number of exercises where we've implemented that risk mitigation plan, both tabletop indoor exercises as well as exercises in the field. We've sent numerous comments to PHMSA and to Exxon asking them to either take some action based on the current laws and regulations to address issues that we found, whether it's pipeline exposures or erosion along the right-of-way. And then we have partnered with Exxon to install a storage unit along the lakeshore that does house about 3,000 feet of boom. And then we also partnered with them to get a mobile response trailer that has a lot of boom and other emergency response material so that we can quickly deploy that anywhere in the watershed if we need it.
What does it do?
What does what do?
Is your mobile response trailer?
At this point, it's essentially a trailer that is modeled off of the ones that Exxon has at its various locations along the pipeline, so that there's consistency between our resources and theirs, so that if either they have staff come in or something happens, they have resources at their disposal here, but also it's allowing our staff as well as local emergency responders to be trained on the same equipment that we've used. So at this point, it's staged in the watershed so that if there is a rupture or a leak, whether it's from an oil pipeline or a tanker truck, a chemical truck, going off the road into the lake, we can quickly get that out there, deploy it. There's a boat in there with a lot of boom as well as some other absorbent materials. So it's just a resource that's able for us and ready for us to utilize. One of the things that I'm going to get to in this next slide is we've asked for a number of actions from both Exxon and PHMSA, and I think I'll get to your question or your point through this, so bear with me. Basically, the immediate thing that we've asked is before they even think about restarting this, there's a whole lot of safety considerations that we want put in place, mostly dealing with valving in the watershed. I mean, 13 and a half miles of pipe with one valve and the drinking water supply for 500,000 people. That's an issue that we really are concerned about. Second, we need to know what the cause of that rupture is, and that needs to be shared publicly, and they need to confirm that the same conditions that led to that aren't present in the watershed, the Lake Maumelle watershed, or really anywhere else along the length of that line. If it is an issue, as some have said here today, with pipe types or pipe wells, then that needs to be disclosed, and there needs to be an action plan put forth that addresses it along the entire 850 miles. Short term, we asked for a number of activities looking at a tactical response plan, specifically what would happen if there were a rupture in the watershed, making sure they update existing ones, sharing that with us and other responders. Improving notification. I know there's been a lot of discussion today about how people are or are not notified about issues, so improving that so CAW is notified as soon as there's a concern so that we can address the drinking water protection for our customers. Monitoring that pipeline more, additional training, additional things like the emergency response trailer and some other boom storage units. Additional valving, and then I mentioned there are some exposed areas along the pipeline that we want to address. One of the things that we've also included and started discussing is improved access to that pipeline and that pipeline right away. If we go back to this map, you can see there's about an 8-mile section from here to here. It's very rugged. I mean, one key difference and one thing that we've learned from what's occurred here, even if they can get people on site within as little as a half an hour and immediately initiate shutdown procedures, we still have somewhere along the lines of 200,000 gallons of product that gets out into the streets or the environment or wherever? Well, that's if you have roads, highways, interstate that can get people there very quickly. There are no roads, interstates, or highways to get to this section. You either get there by boat or you get there by driving on very rugged terrain. So we need to figure out how we can improve access to that area should something happen. We also looked at, we've also asked long-term that we really need to give serious consideration and ultimately put forth a plan and implement the relocation of the pipeline outside of the Lake Maumelle watershed. Because again, as I said, the only way to eliminate all risk is to move that pipeline. So we've done a number of things. We've started increasing our analytical capabilities so that we can detect items in the environment should something occur. We've started preparing and deploying those field sampling kits to do that. We're beginning to revise our risk mitigation plan. We're seeking support from stakeholders throughout the region. We've had a number of citizens groups express support and request relocation to that pipeline. Congressman Griffin's office has requested relocation of the pipeline. So as the city of Little Rock, Pulaski County, the state legislature passed House Bill 1922 this past year. It was signed by the governor, and that encourages a number of risk mitigation activities where pipelines cross through drinking water areas. It doesn't go as far as saying we want that moved, but it does say we want all these safety items in place, and we expect that they are. And then recently, Senator Pryor, Senator Bozeman, Congressman Griffin, Mayor Smith of North Little Rock, Mayor Stodel of Little Rock, and Judge Valines of Pulaski County have all sent letters on one letterhead to both PHMSA and Exxon outlining all of these short-term, immediate, and long-term relocation requests, and hopefully we'll get some response from those, both the regulatory agency as well as Exxon in the next few weeks. CAW has continued to communicate with PHMSA and the AG's office about this issue, trying to stay as informed as we can be. And then we also are preparing legal as well as technical expertise to be able to look at this pipeline, the analysis of the metallurgy tests and other safety-related issues that come out of the process to come in the next few weeks and few months. This slide is just a brief discussion about how this pipeline is only one of a few things in terms of risk that we manage every day. We've eliminated all our gas chlorine. We're increasing security at all our intakes, increasing video surveillance, and doing a wide range of other things to protect and secure the water supply for our customers. But I know folks are eating and some folks haven't gotten food, so I want to stop there, answer any questions, and then we can, I'm sure, get to lunch out.
If Maumelle moves it, where is it going to move? If Maumelle moves somewhere else, right?
Yes, ma'am, and that's a great point. I mean, at this point, we've been saying we want the pipeline relocated out of the watershed. The process in terms of permitting, cost, new location, all those things, those are part of a dialogue that we want to initiate, but we don't have a specific plan or place where we say it should go here, it should be done this way. There's a lot of things to consider, and that's going to be one of the key.
So are you all going to be instrumental in deciding where it goes next?
I think part of the process that we wanted to start the discussion of is who has the authority to say where it can and can't go? Does anyone in the state have the ability to say, yes, you can put it here, no, you can't put it there?
Or if you should put it anywhere.
Wait a minute, who gave you authority in the first place? Who divided the authority for this?
Well, back in the 40s, there was very few environmental laws. The Clean Water Act and the EPA weren't even formed until the 1970s. And so, back then, I know there was I think there was a pipeline agency at the federal level, but as to their locational jurisdiction, a lot of times that's one of those issues that's somewhat limbo. But the location and who's instrumental, who's part of that dialogue, Obviously, CAW wants to be part of the discussion. I don't foresee us being the one that's in the driver's seat saying, put it here, put it there. I think there's a wide range of people that need to have a seat at the table, and we just want to be one of them.
Got a question right
Yes, sir.
You mentioned PHMSA, that being the Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Administration. You guys are in contact with them?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I want to just make sure that people are aware that in July of this year, PHMSA is required on congressional inquiry to brief Congress in July of 2013 about dilbit, which is what flows through these pipes. And the and this is all on their website, by the way, this is not me making that information. The National Academy of Sciences was appointed, and they selected a committee of people who were going to do studies on this kind of stuff. So if we're not a big part of that study in Central Arkansas, we have failed. We haven't, if the Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Administration, which was here for some basically unknown entity, is not made radically aware of what is going on right here, that study is not complete, and that congressional inquiry would be a lot in 2030, and that's in a couple of months. And I want to make one more point, and I'm going to shut up because it makes me really angry. Richard A. Ravenel was the CEO of ExxonMobil Pipeline Company for quite a long time. He sits on that committee. So basically, ExxonMobil has people on the committee that can brief Congress in a couple of months about this stuff, and that's what we're facing.
Yeah, I'm not, this isn't a denial of something you got your longer. Did you know that information that I know one, supposedly they moved the pipeline so it wouldn't go under like Maumelle. I've got videos on here where it's like,
I'm talking about Lake Maumelle. It doesn't run under Lake Maumelle.
no, okay, I thought you said like Maumelle. Okay. It runs it under like Conway and Gold Creek, it runs it under Stone down where they're currently reconstructing Howard and understanding.
Are you aware that any communities have the Pegasus Pipeline PHMSA, USGS, don't show it right now.
That's interesting. We ground truth the maps that we have, so we do know the right of way and the pipe is in our maps. Is in
You
the
need
right
to
of way.
communicate with other agencies and make sure that they know where that pipeline is.
I really appreciate the aspect that it's horrifying to me how far apart those safety cutoff valves are in the watershed. That's absolutely horrifying. But what my question is, I understand we've done a lot of work in preparation by obtaining the book, but what we know about what actually proves is that it's finished and that it's slow. So how does that help?
Well, and that brings up a great point in terms of how we're committed to, in terms of our risk mitigation plans and emergency preparedness, continuing to adapt, to learn, and to add to what we're doing. And one of the things that we've learned from this situation is just that point that there is a potential for this product to, some of it float, some of it sink, or somewhere be in the middle, and we need to update our risk mitigation plan, update the materials we have to be able to address both options, both contingencies, as well as that works if the plan is to contain it in the lake once it gets into the lake. But as we've seen, we need to work to be able to contain it as close to the source as possible as well. And that's why we're looking to focus on improved access, improved ability to get to the pipe and to the pipeline. Because if we can prevent it from getting into the lake, that's the number one goal, and that's the best situation if something should happen.
Thank you for your effort.
Lake Maumelle, it ranges, and we do have some shallow coves. The lake is well, let's go back. So the lake itself, the pipeline just crosses the river here, here, and here. It doesn't cross under the lake itself. Through the watershed, the pipeline on average is buried somewhere between 1 to 2.5 feet underground. There's some places where it's over.
Is it go under the river bed?
Yes, ma'am. There's one place where there's an aerial crossing where it's designed to go over a small creek.
So you probably
The rest of the time it's
stand
under.
in the river there, right? I understand the part. So if you can't, like, if a person couldn't dive down and get to it or anything like that, you'd have to have some kind of equipment that would be able to have to go down to access it.
Right, where the pipe goes under the river, it's intended to be under dirt. There's supposed to be at least
Yeah, well, I'm.
regulatorily 2
The point
feet.
I'm trying to make is you couldn't physically access it if you had a leak there. I mean, without some kind of special equipment or, like a diver couldn't dive down, you wouldn't be able to access it without some kind of specialized equipment. Is that true?
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know
what
anything about the river at that point, but most places it's not very swimmable, so a person could just dive in with, scuba gear and hands on and go down and fix it with a welding torch or something like that.
Yeah, and your point is, I mean, the pipeline's buried a couple feet down throughout the entirety, land or underwater. And so to excavate it, obviously you have to have heavy equipment to excavate it. If under the river, you're dealing with a whole other issue. You may have, 3 to 4 feet of water or more on top of that dirt at any given time. And so,
Thank you for telling me.
in some places it gets fairly, it's a fairly small river. In some places it gets shallow, in some places.
Yeah, I'm not thinking that
Where it goes under Arkansas River.
We're trying to, basically address all scenarios simultaneously. We want some immediate safety actions, kind of the most critical issues. We want safety actions, to fill the next 12 to 24 months. But at the same time, we need to be working towards that relocation. So what the future holds, we don't know, and we need to be prepared for all contingencies.
Is the Attorney General behind y'all?
He is not, his office has not come out and formally taken that position. We are communicating with them, sharing information, but in terms of an official position, he or his office is not taking specific. So I haven't spoken to him or his staff about it, so I can't comment on that in terms of yes or no. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, it's easy to understand the importance of looking at the mountains where there's such an impact with such a large population. But has there been discussion about contamination of aquifers that may be problems for individual wells?
From our end, there's not been, because we're primarily concerned with the water supply.
I assume you know the scuttlebutt, what is going on in discussions about this and the relocation of the line.
I personally have not heard any dialogue about aquifer contamination. That doesn't mean there isn't any going on, but if there is, it hasn't reached me or my dad.
Along those lines, if someone around here has well water, should they be concerned? As I do, although I'm north of here.
My background really is almost exclusively surface water. I don't want to comment on the realm that I don't know.
I always think there's reason to be concerned, especially when we're talking about water quality in an area that's obviously.
Well, great. Well, thank you guys. I do want to end by saying, I've worked on water quality and water issues for some time now, and had the pleasure of working with a wide range of community groups. And I can say that what you guys are doing, showing up here, getting the media involved, and trying to speak with one voice, this is the most effective way to get action. So I applaud y'all for showing up, and I applaud y'all for doing what you're doing. And we'll continue to stay in touch and share information about our efforts, learn about what y'all are doing and find ways to work together, towards our common goal. So thank you guys for y'all's commitment and y'all's action on this issue.